Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Payne Report. My name is Cameron Payne and I'm your host. And today we are going to recap the New Year's Six Bowl games and recap NFL Week 17. But first off, I just want to say follow my Twitter at CP4227 and follow my Instagram at PayneRCam4227. And for the Instagram, it's all lowercase. I'm not special, I put it all lowercase. But anyways, so I figured we would just recap what I talked about last episode in terms of New Year's Six Bowl picks and kind of what I took away from those games. So first up, I believe I picked in the Cotton Bowl. It was Oklahoma versus Florida. And I picked Oklahoma to win this game, basically on the fact that Florida didn't have their. It turns out they didn't have their top four most productive receivers. So I mean, when you lose around 30 plus touchdown production for your quarterback, that is going to have an effect on your offense, and it showed early on. I mean, Oklahoma was able to pick off the ball from Kyle Trask early, often, and Trask just couldn't settle into the game with these receivers. And I guess the not having that chemistry showed, and I believe the final score of the game was 55-20. So Oklahoma really showed off their dominance. They got really a lot better on defense, which I was not expecting from an Oklahoma team because, they play in the Big 12. It's all predicated on offense there. So the fact that they were able to hold a high-powered offense, granted, Florida didn't have the top four guys, but still, Kyle Trask is a good quarterback in terms of college. So the fact that they could hold him to 20 points shows that they have made improvements in their defense. And I think this is a good step right in direction for this Oklahoma program, probably looking into getting to the college football playoff again next year and possibly getting actually into the national championship game instead of just losing in the first round. But next up was the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. I picked Georgia. I was expecting Georgia to pull away late, but they didn't do that. They were, in fact, down the entire game until the very last minute when JT Daniels did make some throws, but he missed some throws too. He wasn't as big as an X factor I thought. But I tell you what, George Pickens is a man among boys in terms of what a receiver he can be. And I mean, it just showed when Cincinnati left him one-on-one. It was like, in our final drive, I was like, well, JT Daniels, if he sees Pickens one-on-one, he's just going to throw it to him. And that's exactly what happened. When they, I think there was a 20-something yard pass to Pickens to really get that momentum going into field goal range to go win it. So that was my takeaway from that. I mean, Cincinnati played a tough game, but I think Georgia's pass rush just became way too much for them, especially after their starting left tackle went out. And I tell you what, as a Titans fan who wants to see pass rush from their team, I don't know who that guy on Georgia is. I cannot say his last name to save my life, but he dominated the backup left tackle, and I mean, I want to see him in a Titans uniform. That's what I want to see. I mean, he ended the game basically on a sack safety. So I want to see him in a Titans uniform. I'll have to look up his name later and mention him in next episode and give him props where props are at. But that's a good player. He's going to the NFL draft. I know that. And as a Titans fan, I want to see him in a Titans uniform. Next up is the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. And I have to say, this is probably my biggest takeaway from these games was that Iowa State proved that the hard way works in college football. Matt Campbell, this is his fifth year, I believe. He built something special, and the message that going into this game was that we don't have the 5 stars, we don't have the 4 stars, we don't have the big name recruits. We got the 3 stars, we got the 2 stars, we got the walk-ons, and it was about we are going to take our guys, we're going to develop them, and we're going to believe in them. And I think that team just buys into that, and that's good for Iowa State. I mean, they're not in a high recruiting area in terms of Ames, Iowa, like who wants to go to Ames, Iowa. But the fact that they won this Fiesta Bowl the way that they did, the way they just dominated Oregon up front with running the ball with Breece Hall was amazing. I was amazed by their run game. I wasn't really amazed by Brock Purdy. I ended up picking the game based on who had more experience at quarterback, and I guess I was right halfway because I didn't trust the Oregon quarterback, Tyler Schaff. I'm saying his name wrong. Sorry if I'm saying his name wrong, but and it showed as they actually threw an Anthony Brown in there too, and they ran that 2 quarterback system, and that's ultimately what hurt Oregon's offense in that game as Iowa State began to pull away. And in my opinion, Brock Purdy should not have won um, offensive MVP for the Fiesta Bowl. I think he threw one touchdown, ran for another. I think he had like some 70 something yards rushing and only threw for 159 yards. And in my opinion, it should have been Breece Hall for Iowa State that won offensive MVP. I mean, he had 34 carries for 136 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, he should have won offensive MVP for the Fiesta Bowl. He's a budding star in college football. I believe he's just a sophomore. So, the fact that uh, I'm pretty sure he is a sophomore, but the fact that he's still pretty young and an underclassman, and let's see what he can do going into next year, and let's see if Iowa State can build off of this monumental win. Next up was the Capital One Orange Bowl. I picked Texas A&M based on just their defense. I thought it was going to be a shootout, and I basically picked Texas A&M on ball control, their defense, being able to control the clock, but I thought it was going to be a shootout. I thought it would be a shootout, and then Texas A&M will later pull away with they eventually get a couple of defensive stops and just run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. That didn't really happen. I mean, I watched the game in the first half. I was just bored out of my mind by it because it was close in the first half. I think the first half score was 13-7 going not 13-7, 17-13. Texas A&M going into halftime. It's just A&M was just too much for UNC in the second half of that game. And I mean, I only turned the game off. I was like, I watched like a lot of football games today. I want to go to bed, and that's exactly what I did. But it was a very interesting game. And next up was the Rose Bowl. The first one I believe I picked Alabama. I believe I only got one of the two semifinal games right. Yeah, because I picked Alabama, and I believe the final score of this game was 34-17, or it was 34-17 or 34-14. Notre Dame basically barely covered the spread, and everyone called it. Everyone knew Notre Dame was going to get beat down. There's really no takeaways here. I think Devontae Smith, in terms of Heisman, after watching what he did, he's the Heisman winner in my opinion. I mean, like he has to win the Heisman. I mean, if Mac Jones wins the Heisman, good for him. But it would be cool to see a receiver. I mean, he'd be the first one since Desmond Howard to win it. I believe it was the early 90s when Desmond Howard won it too. I believe it was 91. I'm not exactly sure on that. But it'll be interesting to see a wide receiver to win it this year. And I think Devontae Smith is a earning candidate. He deserves to be a Heisman finalist, and I think he deserves to be the Heisman winner after all he's done for this team, especially stepping up for Jalen Waddle after he's become injured. So I believe in Devontae Smith. I think he's going to be something special at the next level too. But yeah, I think he's this year's Heisman winner, and that's my takeaway from that game. The Sugar Bowl was very interesting. I got this pick wrong. I picked Clemson. I thought Clemson was going to dominate, and boy was I wrong. Dabo Sweeney saying that Ohio State was the 11th ranked country, I guess really added fuel to that Ohio State fire. I mean, I saw the pregame intro to it. The fact that Ohio State had the last year's playoff semifinal game score on their weight room day after day, that would motivate me as a player, just seeing that day after day, week after week, especially with like all that has gone on this year in the Big Ten, not knowing if you're going to play and everything. So the fact they were motivated, they looked like they wanted it more. They just looked confident. They looked poised. Ohio State, I think, can give Alabama some trouble in a national championship game. It's going to be an interesting matchup. But what I really took away from this game was Justin Fields' toughness, mainly after James Stowski gave him that side hit, which was targeting him because he lowered his. I hate the rule that a player should get ejected for it, but I mean when I look back on it, at first I thought, okay, that's kind of a dumb call, but then I looked back on it. He did lower the crown of his helmet. It was targeting, and I know that's not like a terrible hot take there. It's just more of keeping the guy safe, even a defensive player, because I mean, if you look at that hit and the one Ryan Shazier did a couple years ago, they are very similar, and that one Ryan Shazier did ultimately almost left him paralyzed for life. So I mean, it's just trying to eliminating lowering your head and hitting someone. I think that's what they're trying to do, and I give them props for that, trying to do that. But I think the NFL approach to it is the right way. 15-yard penalty, because ejecting the guy from the game, I don't know. But shouldn't be a hit, shouldn't take that hit, but Justin Fields showed really good toughness, really good grit, and just kept lighting up the game after it. I mean, I love Clemson. I am partly a Clemson fan, so just seeing the way Fields dominated Clemson kind of hurt a little, but and it hurts a little just reviewing this, but it's fine because I mean he performed well, and I like seeing players perform well, especially showing toughness and grit the way he did after that hit. That's no easy hit that had to hurt, and he was battling through toughness, and props to him. And I hope he's fully healthy for the national championship game. I mean, this national championship game is gonna be fun. It has potential to be an offensive fireworks show, and I mean, we're talking. It could rival probably one of the greatest college. It could rival up there with greatest college shootouts. I mean, it could rival the greatest shootouts from Monday Night Football a couple years ago, or I think no, not Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football a couple years ago. When we had the Rams and Chiefs do it. It could be something of that magnitude where offenses are just going back and forth, scoring, 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 scoring. I hope that happens because who doesn't love a good offensive shootout in a national championship game of all games? But I'm not going to pick that game right now. I'm going to save that for next episode because I'm leaning on the fence towards Alabama. I just need to watch more, and not like watch more tape, but like just takeaways, opinions, and kind of just read up more on Ohio State because I haven't watched a lot of Ohio State football this year, and I want to see how they match up against Alabama in terms of their bump and run coverage on the outside, stuff like that, in terms of attacking that. And I mean, if you get a performance like that out of Justin Fields in the national championship game, like you just did, they could beat Alabama. So it'll be. I think it's gonna be a close game, but I will make that prediction in the next episode. So that is all I have in terms of college football. My picks. I mean, there were six New Year's Six bowls. I went 5-1. I think that's a pretty good record starting out my first time in terms of picking New Year's Six bowl games. I mean, I'm in college. I haven't watched a lot of college football because I've had to focus on my studies. But when I have watched games, I think just being able to just do some research and get some takeaways, pick some teams, and end up with a 5-1 record. I think that's a good record to start out with. But next up, I want to recap Week 17 of the NFL season. And in terms of game picks, I did all right. I believe there were 15 games. I got 12 out of 15 right. I went 12-3. The 3 that I got wrong were the Cardinals, Dolphins, and Cowboys. I thought they were going to win. They did not. The Cowboys decided to show up. Not the Cowboys. The Giants decided to show up and beat the Cowboys. The Bills really mollywhopped the Dolphins. The Dolphins, for whatever reason, I guess they just went up the buff and they're like, no, we're not going to play today, even though their playoff spot was on the line. And they ended up getting knocked out of playoffs because of it. And then I believe it was the Cardinals. Yeah, Kyler Murray, I believe he got knocked out early. They only scored, I believe it was 8 points. So I was really surprised by that from a Cliff Kingsbury offense. The Rams only scored 16. Granted, Jared Goff was out with an injury. And that would be interesting for them going into the playoffs because they have a playoff spot. So hopefully Goff is available for the Rams. So we can have a good playoff matchup there. I'm not sure who they play yet. I'm not gonna make NFL playoff predictions until next episode 2 because I want to be able to look at the matchups, who I think is gonna win, and then I'll make playoff predictions next episode. And I'll get started on those notes actually probably right after I'm done recording this. But anyway, in terms of takeaways, I got it right with the Chiefs resting some key starters, with the Steelers resting some key starters. So I guess I saw a lot this morning of the Browns. Can they make noise in the playoffs? I personally say no, because I was concerned that the Browns, they kind of just barely beat the Steelers' second stringers, essentially. They didn't play, I don't think they played a lot of starters on defense. They only scored 24 points against, I think, second, third stringers on defense, and maybe a few first stringers, but there wasn't their full starting lineup. I know Chase Claypool played and Deontay Johnson played. I know they played, and I mean the fact that Mason Rudolph the fact that it came down to a 2-point conversion with Mason Rudolph is kind of scary for Cleveland because they do play the Steelers again in the playoffs next weekend. So I think I'd be a little concerned if I was a Cleveland fan going into the playoffs, but it's the playoffs. Everyone's record 0-0. Anybody can win, as we know. It's the NFL playoffs. Anything can happen. I would just be a little bit nervous in terms of that. I mean, the Chargers were going to win because, I mean, with Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill all not playing. Yeah, yeah, you're going to win. Like, if they're not. But even then, I mean, they were still able to put 21 points with the second string offense. And Justin Herbert, really good quarterback was my takeaway from that game. A good rookie quarterback. He's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. I didn't watch the game. I just know probably just looking at the stats of the game, Justin Herbert's a good quarterback. Justin Herbert, pretty good quarterback. So hopefully he can take another step going into year 2. And I'll touch on the Anthony Lynn stuff in a minute. But my second takeaway, I am a Tennessee Titans fan, and that game in Houston was a up and down roller coaster. First off, I am in a part of the country where I could not get the game. I can't remember the game I got instead, but I didn't get the Titans and Texans game, but I have done this before. I'm able to get a radio station off of an app on my phone that does FM AM radio, so I was able to listen to the game and hear Mike Keefe call the game. And man, I had a heart attack basically the entire second half. Like, oh my goodness. It was a heart attack of, can Derrick Henry get 2,000 yards? Okay, he got 2,000 yards. Can we win the football game? Like, I mean, up to that point, I knew going into the game because Miami had lost, Tennessee clinched a playoff spot. But I wanted, as a Titans fan, Titans fans wanted a home playoff game so bad this year. After the run they went on last year, it was like, can we please just get a home playoff game? Can we get rid of 9-7? We got rid of 9-7, and I was like, oh crap, here we go again. We shed the 9-7 narrative, got rid of that. Even with 10 wins, we're not going to get a home playoff. That's what it felt like. But they were able to, they've ended up finishing with 11 wins, won the AFC South, get a home playoff game. It was great. I mean, that last drive where they took the go-ahead touchdown, I was literally like just in a position of like, holy cow, can they win? Please win, please win. And then when I heard there was like basically 2 minutes left on the clock for Deshaun Watson, I knew he was going to drive down. I knew they're going to go to field goal or potentially win the game. And at that point, when I heard on the radio call that it was tied 38-38, I immediately turned it on CBS because I knew there would be extra coverage because there's 18 seconds left and a potential overtime game. There would be extra coverage of that game on CBS. And I said, all right, I know it's on. And I got to watch A.J. Brown come up clutch with a 52-yard catch from Ryan Tannehill. In fact, on that play, before the play was snapped, I was yelling, throw to AJ, throw to AJ, throw to AJ, give AJ a chance. Like, literally, I was yelling that. And, I mean, they lined up, Corey Davis and AJ Brown lined up on a bunch formation to the right of Ryan Tannehill. And Tannehill took the snap. They basically ran a double post. Corey Davis was on the inside. A.J. Brown was on the outside of that bunch coverage. They ran a double post, and Tannehill threw a dime, dropping the bucket. A.J. Brown ran it down, and as it was in the air, I was just yelling, please, A.J., come down with this. Don't want this to go to overtime. Don't want it to come to a coin flip. I've had enough of this game. I want it to end. And, man, he came down with it. And then the field goal. Sam Sloan, I believe his name is, in for Steven Gostkowski because of COVID-19 protocols. And holy cow, I knew he was going to get iced. And after he got iced, I was like, oh gosh, he's going to miss it. He's going to miss it. He's going to doink it. He's going to do something. And when the kick went in, it was leaning. It was going to the right, going to the right, going to the right. And I was like, please just go in. And it doinked. At first, I thought he missed. I was literally like, no. And then I saw the referees hold up the field goal as good sign, and I lost my mind. I was like, holy cow, they won the AFC South, first time in 12 years. And like just to give you a sense of like what it was for like in terms of a Titans fan, especially for me, I was last time they won the AFC South, I was 7 years old. Like I was 7 years old. I don't remember the last time they won the AFC South. So the fact that I'm here, 19, seeing my favorite team win the AFC South, first time in like forever, in like my opinion, basically first time of me remembering it was a great moment, and I will remember always that AJ Brown catch. Just how Titans fans remember Marcus Mariota's stiff arm sending us to the playoffs, and just Derrick Henry's last year's 59-yard touchdown run to secure the rushing title and a playoff berth for the Titans too. So every Titans fan was probably gonna remember that catch and that doink in. And what a Titans way to end that game too, for it to doink in. Like the fact that it doinked in was great. Like what a Titans way to win that game. But that brings me to my next point. After that game, it was like, well, afternoon games are over. Just kind of just wait, relax, wait until Sunday Night Football, and I was just relaxing, waiting for Sunday Night Football, and I watched a little bit of the game. I didn't turn on the game until the second quarter, and didn't see it until it was going into halftime, and then they came out in the third, I believe, and then I had to do something else, and I was able to cut it back on, and I was actually driving back home when I heard this on the radio that Jalen Hurts was pulled after throwing a pick after Jalen Hurts threw a pick in the fourth quarter, and I just thought that was odd that Jalen Hurts was pulled from the game for throwing one interception. I mean, granted, he was like up 7 of 20 up to that point, but he had 2 rushing touchdowns, and he's your best shot at winning the game because Carson Wentz was not dressed for the game. So the fact that he was benched for Nate Sudfeld was like, what the heck is Doug Peterson doing? Type of like thinking with everybody. It was like, Doug Peterson, aren't you trying to win the football game? And Giants fans especially, I saw this on Twitter, Giants fans were not happy because they needed the Eagles to win to beat the Washington football team, so the Giants could get into the playoffs. Because if the Eagles beat the Washington football team, the Giants would have won the NFC East and would have been in the playoffs. And it was like, is there like something going on? The Eagles organization like hate the Giants so much that they're like, screw you, we're gonna lose this game on purpose? Was it losing the game on purpose for draft order? I mean, there's not really a huge difference in terms of getting the sixth pick in the draft compared to the ninth pick if they won the game. I mean, personally, like if I was a coach and I was like, okay, we got a divisional rival, and if we beat them, we kick them out of the playoffs. Heck yeah, I'm gonna try to beat them. I want to beat them. I want to kick them out of the playoffs. It'd be great. But I guess, I mean, Doug Peterson came out and said he was doing all he could to win. I don't know. I really don't know if they were trying to tank or sabotage the Giants. It was just weird. I really don't know in terms of what the heck was going on with that. So, who knows what was going through Doug Peterson's head when he was like, you know what, Nate Sudfeld, he can lead us to the promised land. Or maybe Doug Peterson was like, what if he thought he was up on the scoreboard and he was like, okay, well, we're up on the scoreboard. Well, I wonder if he thought he was like in a blowout and they were up so big. He was like, yeah, screw it, we're putting backup quarterback. But seriously, all jokes aside, no one knows what was going through Doug Peterson's mind when he did that. And in terms of the Philadelphia Eagles going forward, I mean, before the game, it was in talks that Peterson could see an extension, but I don't know now. I really don't know. I mean, isn't that something? I mean, he won a Super Bowl in his second year, and I think this is his 5th or 6th season with the team, and there's questions about him and his job security. Like, that is something, because a couple years ago, it was in discussion that Doug Peterson was one of the best coaches in the NFL. and now look where we're at with him. And that's very something. And this brings me to my next point. It was the historic NFL Black Monday. NFL Black Monday is usually the Monday after Week 17, which is when a bunch of head coaches usually get fired. That's usually what happens. I mean, we didn't see a lot of that this year, but the coaches that did not survive NFL Black Monday were Jets head coach Adam Gase, Jaguars head coach Doug Marrone, and Chargers head coach Anthony Lynn. And I'm going to dive straight into this. First off, Adam Gase getting fired by the Jets. I believe he had a 9-23 record the last 2 seasons. It was last year. I mean, he should have never been hired in the first place. He was fired by the Miami Dolphins for a reason. Whatever the reason, the Jets thought, okay, let's bring him in and hire this guy. And like you could tell from the introduction press conference, it was not going to work out. Like you could just tell. I don't think anybody thought this was a good hire at the time. I didn't think it was a good hire. I was like, what the heck are the Jets doing? And it showed, especially this year. I mean, they started out, I believe it was like 0-12, or no, they started out 0-13. They started out 0-13 and then won 2 games in a row. And how about that? I wonder if Adam Gase was like, well, they're gonna fire me anyway, so let's just screw over this franchise so they don't get Trevor Lawrence. No, but I don't even think. I think he was trying to win games at the start of the year, and they didn't have a good team. Adam Gase is just not a good head coach. In fact, I don't think he's even a good offensive coordinator when you think about it, because I mean, he was with Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos when they had that record-setting year. I think that was more Peyton Manning than instead of Adam Gase, because he was the offensive coordinator for Jay Cutler in the Bears, I believe, the next season. And they actually had, I believe it was either the 26th or 16th ranked offense. I can't remember the number. So it's not like he was a super innovative offensive mind or a great coach who was a player's coach. I mean, and you saw with Le'Veon Bell, he's not a player's coach. Just not a good coach in general. The Jet, I mean, this is basically a takeaway after they started, I believe, 0-7. And it was like, just fire Gase, just fire Gase, just fire Gase. I mean, even when they started 0-4, just fire Gase at this point. I mean, he ruined Sam Darnold, essentially. But Adam Gase is not a good head coach, got fired. Be interesting to see who they bring in. I think they do have some interesting young talent. They had the 2nd pick in the draft. I mean, do you want to stick with Sam Darnold, or do you want to draft a Justin Fields? I mean, Joe Douglas wasn't there when Darnold was drafted. Adam Gase was not Joe Douglas' head coach, so Joe Douglas was going to bring in his guy, and potentially his quarterback too. So it'll be interesting to see if they go after Eric Bieniemy, the Chiefs offensive coordinator. That would be interesting to see if they go after him. I believe another guy they were interested in was Tennessee Titans offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. I really hope that doesn't happen, because I love Arthur Smith as a coach and a coordinator, and I'm like, please don't go, because as a Titans fan, everyone knows the revolving door of offensive coordinators they've had the last couple of years. So we would like him to stay put. So everyone knows Arthur Smith would kill it in interviews, but we want him to stay in terms of a Titans fan's perspective. But anyways, it'll be interesting to see who they hire going forward. Next up, the Jaguars fired Doug Marrone. I mean, this year, going into this year, he was already on the hot seat. I mean, last year after they got rid of Tom Coughlin, I guess the owner of the Jaguars, the Khan family, I guess, wanted to see if Doug Marrone could do something on his own. I mean, without Tom Coughlin bearing down on him or breathing over his shoulder. Same thing with their GM, I believe David Caldwell. So they both got fired, I believe. And it'll be interesting because they got a haul of picks this year. They got a haul of picks next year, I believe. They have around $100 million in cap space. And, I mean, ownership, they're not overly directive in terms of overreaching with players. I think they just let the coaches and front office do their work. They don't try to get involved too much. So it'll be very interesting in terms of who they bring in as a GM, who they bring in as a head coach. They had the first pick, so I mean, if Trevor Lawrence comes out, which Trevor Lawrence is probably going to come out this year, the Jaguars will have a new quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. I mean, you got the number one overall pick. You got 11 picks in this draft, $100 million in cap space. See who they bring in. There have been links with, I believe, Urban Meyer. I don't know if Urban Meyer would be a good NFL head coach. Who knows? I mean, in terms of his health. But granted, being a coach in college, being a coach in a NFL team's a completely different situation, because in college, you're essentially the coach and the GM, and you have to get a group of kids believing you. While NFL, you're the CEO of the team in terms of coaching. You don't really have to worry about building a team. I mean, you can give your input to the GM, but usually the GM will be in charge of that unless you're Bill Belichick or a couple other head coaches in the NFL where they are the GM, where they are the head coach too. But who knows if Urban Meyer comes out of retirement, and there have been links to Ryan Day, the Ohio State head coach too. That would be interesting, but who knows if Ryan... I don't think... They would really have to bring in the Brinks truck to get Ryan Day away from Ohio State. That's my opinion. I mean, that's basically my opinion there. And next up, the Chargers fire Anthony Lynn. Not gonna lie, I was a bit shocked by this. I didn't really see it coming, mainly because Anthony Lynn... he got his team on a 4-game win streak to end out the season. Granted, the last win was against the Chiefs' backups, but a win is a win in the NFL. So I was a bit surprised by it, but I'm also not overly surprised by it too. The reason why I say that is because when you look at, in terms of Anthony Lynn's game management, in the season, like, it was terrible. I mean, he is a player's coach. He gets them motivated, but the game management was terrible. I think in the Buffalo game, at the end of the game, that was very evident. Like, why are you running the ball when you have no timeouts and it's under a minute left? Like, granted, they weren't going to win the game anyways because they were down by 2 scores, but you're supposed to be passing the ball, dude. Like, you're going to run a quarterback sneak 3 yards away. Like, no, that's terrible coaching. It's terrible game management, clock management, everything. And the fact that they lost so many close games to end out the year, I mean, not to end out the year, but in this year too, they lost so many close games. I think that's ultimately what did Anthony Lynn in. I mean, a couple years ago, everyone was talking about, like the next, like everyone thought he was like, I mean, after they came off the playoff run, after they beat the Baltimore Ravens going up in the accident, I mean, they went to New England, got smacked, but still they had a playoff win. They had, I believe, a 12-4 record. They were hot, and then just kind of fell off last year due to injuries and all that, and then kind of same situation again this year. But, I mean, as an NFL head coach, you got to face adversity with injuries, and just the way they lost close games this year, it wasn't really surprising that it was surprising and not surprising, if it makes sense. It was kind of like, I feel like the Chargers ownership just flipped the coin and was like, okay, if it lands on heads, we'll fire him. If it doesn't, we're not going to fire him. I feel like that's what they did. But, I mean, especially a couple years ago, like I said, got his team to the playoff, 12-4 record, had a playoff victory. It was like, up-and-coming head coach, like, potentially probably going to be one of the better coaches in the NFL, and then couple years later, he's fired and is out of a job. So it'd be interesting to see where Anthony Lynn ends up. I think it would be cool if McDaniels leaves New England. We could see Anthony Lynn coach with Bill Belichick. That would be cool. I think he does have a shot at another head coaching job. I don't think he's a bad head coach. I just think I don't think he's a bad head coach. I think he probably learned a lot from this season with, I've said he'd had a lot of bad clock management and everything, but I think he probably learned from the season and will get better at that, because you get better as you go. That's a give with any career, any job. You get better as time moves forward. And so I would like to see him get another head coaching job. Maybe not like right away. Maybe he can get something in the college level. Maybe he can go be a coordinator, get another shot at a head coaching job. But I'd be happy for him if he does get another head coaching job. Because credit to you, man, you got another head coaching job like right away. But I think it would be good for him to go be a coordinator again, and learn from his mistakes from this head coaching experience and come back, coach another team, have success with that team, maybe win a Super Bowl with that team. That would be good. So anything to Lynn, I hope he finds another good job to him because he is a good coordinator. And I think what was interesting, I watched a video earlier talking about him as a head coach, and he wasn't like a real offensive guru. He was a running back, so but even then, he's an offensive mind. So I think he's gonna bounce on his feet somewhere. And the Chargers organization, in terms of who they target as a head coach, I think you hear a lot of the same names. You hear Bieniemy. You hear you hear the Colts defensive coordinator name. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I believe it's something Eberflus. I can't remember. I know it's a creative, awesome last name, Eberflus. So it would be interesting to see if he gets a head coaching job with the Chargers. In terms of who I want to see, I would like to see an offensive mind go to the Chargers because, you got Justin Herbert. You got your quarterback of the future. Let's bring in someone to build with Herbert. I swear, if the Chargers hire Adam Gase, that would suck. I would just feel bad for Herbert. They're not going to hire Adam Gase, hopefully. But just bring in a good coordinator, bring in someone who can challenge Justin Herbert as a quarterback and mentally get more out of him. Like, let's really try to hit Justin Herbert's ceiling here. Let's go hit it. Let's go hit his ceiling. We know his ceiling's high. Let's go hit it as an organization. We want the best for him. We're going to build this team around him. He's going to be our franchise. He's going to be the face of the LA Chargers. So I think that's the mindset ownership has to go into finding a new head coach. The GM has to have going into finding a new head coach. So I believe they can. Tom Pelissero, not Tom Pelissero. I believe it's Tom Pelissero who is the Chargers GM, or that's an NFL reporter. My bad. But I know be great. They have a good GM. And the Chargers, he said it himself on the Pat McAfee show, they were comfortable with either taking Herbert or Tua. So they got a good GM. I believe he's going to find a good head coach to go with. So, man, Justin Herbert, you got your quarterback future. Good organization in terms of structure in the front office. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here for them. This brings me to the end of the show. There's not really much to end out with here. I don't really have anything coming up in terms of promotion-wise or anything like that. Just watch my Twitter, watch my Instagram for updates on the show. If you just want to see I'm more active on my Twitter than I am Instagram. I'm still learning Instagram because I just got it. So I'm still learning there. Not really much. I will be talking about the national championship game next episode. I'll be doing playoff picks next episode. And then I'll probably, if there's some NFL head coaches that have been hired, some new NFL head coaches, I'll talk a little bit about that too. So anyway, this has been the second episode of the Payne Report. And y'all have a great day. Peace.